So, I'm driving home from the shops and I figured this may be a nice time to make a little review for the Renault Twingo. I sold the Fiat. It was giving me a headache, to be honest. It was a lovely car, but it was giving me a headache. And instead of doing what every normal human being would do and buy one of those reliable, cheap A to B Japanese cars, I paid €250 for a Renault Twingo. That, according to the advertisement, had a bad drive axle. Well, they also said it smelled like washing up liquid because a bottle had exploded, and that's a sign that something's up. And indeed, the reason it smelled of washing up liquid is because after the washing up liquid smell had gone, it started smelling of petrol. And as soon as I filled it up, 3 liters of petrol were on the street. Well, as it turned out, it was not really a big defect. It was annoying though. The petrol pump wasn't placed in the petrol tank properly, and all the petrol would leak out from over a certain level. So that was an easy fix. Just replace the pump and put a little new rubber ring in it, and it's fine. Pity you can't do it yourself because you need some sort of weird tool that even most garages don't have. So okay. Other than that, we replaced both drive axles and the spring, because apparently that all needed doing. And though it's not perfect yet, so far it's been remarkably reliable. I give you a little list of the problems it still has. Right front tire deflates. It needs aligning because it prefers to go left. Then there's the cam belt, of which I don't know how old it is. The seller told me it had a chain, which some of these Twingos do. I had my doubts, but I figured he'd know. Well, he definitely knew, but he didn't tell me the truth. So it doesn't have a chain, it has a belt. I don't know how old it is, so I will replace it really soon. I am planning on doing that myself, as having it done is €475. What else needs doing? Yeah, the Speedo is a bit off every now and then. Sometimes it just goes to 0 while you're driving and stuff like that. Indicators sometimes don't work when you have the steering wheel at a certain angle. This can be fixed by just replacing the stalk, and I actually have a new stalk with the car. The rear brakes are noisy, but not like they are worn. They are just noisy when the car has been standing stationary for a few hours, so somehow dirt or rust or whatever gathers on them, so I'll have to take them apart. The thing brakes brilliantly, actually. And here we get to the good parts. Oh, I can't get in here apparently, that's not a good thing. The noises you hear are my groceries. Thing brakes brilliantly, that's not an issue, it's absolutely safe, but there's something noisy, so I have to check that out. Good news is, gearbox, brilliant. Clutch, great. Brakes, fine. Acceleration, perfect. The engine runs super smooth. Sometimes I stop at a red light or whatever, and I'm afraid it has stalled because it's so quiet. That can't be said while you're driving, by the way. The car's actually quite noisy, way more noisy than I remember the Twingo to be. But then the last time I drove a Twingo, I drove a Citroen Visa myself. So, you know, my reference was a bit off. Yet I did drive it to Nijmegen and back yesterday. That's 260 kilometers, both directions. And it was actually a great little drive. I really didn't mind it too much. Obviously my Volvo 440 is more comfortable when it comes to seats and noise level. But when it comes to suspension, I actually prefer the Twingo because it's a very comfortable little car. It's not like wallowy, like Citroen AXs for instance. I like that, but it's not great for road holding. It's sort of firm, but never jumpy or juddering or whatever. It's really well done, the suspension, which is probably because Renault has some rally pedigree, and that's the thing with the Twingo. It has a great deal of Renault 5 in the way it drives. It's actually quite old-fashioned to drive, even though it feels really tight. But so did the Renault 5 in a weird way. The gearbox is incredible. I can't believe how well this thing shifts. It's got this really obvious click to it, which makes it, well, you always get it in the right gear. And it doesn't have much play or anything. It feels like a new car when it comes to this. It's done 130,000 kilometers. I actually had to check online because they replaced the speedometer, and this one reads 293,000. Well, I hope it'll get that far, but not yet, obviously. The other speedometer is in the back of the car. I still need to figure out what's wrong with it because I obviously want the original back, and this one isn't working properly either. So I don't think the problem was the Speedo to start with. It's probably the speed sender that's on the gearbox. It's got no power steering, which is lovely because I hate power steering. It ruins the ride. If you ask me, it ruins the feel. So I'm really happy that it doesn't have that because it doesn't need it. It's got really narrow tires. I think it's 155 65 13 if I'm not mistaken. So that's and it's a car that weighs I think just 800 kilograms. So you really don't need power steering, and you just have to muscle up for parking a bit. Other than that, it's really light, despite the fact that it needs aligning, so it's a bit lighter to the left than to the right now, which is annoying because it's a great steering car. It actually has a really nice balance to it. It does understeer. Obviously, it's a small front-wheel drive car, but when it does in a very controllable manner. It's not suddenly going straight ahead, it's just slightly starting to understeer, and you still feel like you can push it way more and way more. Even with these tires, which are of a brand called CEAT, and I think that's utter crap, but I have to admit they are not particularly noisy. They grip well, they brake well, so apparently they work for this car. I did think about replacing them because, you know, actually it should have Michelins, but they are great tires. They are not dried out, and they have plenty of thread still on them, so I'm not going to replace those. As for the driving itself, well, as I said, it's a Renault, so it's all comfortable but not too comfortable, and you can feel that someone who actually likes driving has been working on it. The position for the steering wheel is a bit odd for me because, well, I'm Dutch, I'm not that tall, but I'm still taller than the average Frenchman, I think. So the seating is a bit short, and I'm either too far away from the steering wheel or too close to the pedals. I had the exact same problem with the Fiat. Steering's light, but not too light. It's not nervous on the highway or anything. It's right now more nervous than it should be because the tires are not aligned properly, but you can tell where it's going. It's going to be fine. Everything is where you expect it to be. Everything's really easy to control and within reach, except for the most brilliant thing of this car, maybe the emergency lights. They are kind of hard to miss because they're there. They're a little quiz button. Some Renault cornering for you, but you don't need those often. But you have to reach quite far to get to them. What is this in front of me? It's some sort of tractor. Well, that's another thing. It's not a fast car. It's got, I believe, 53 horsepower, which is enough for city use. But as soon as you get onto the highway, you do realize that it's not exactly powerful. And though it is really stable and comfortable on the highway, it is definitely a car that you need to sort of use a calendar to do overtaking maneuvers. There's no way of denying that. I don't mind that myself. I'm used to driving old and slow cars, but like this, overtaking this tractor, I don't think so. Maybe if I have loads of space, but I can't see that. Which is not the car's fault, because visibility all around is incredible. You've got this huge windscreen that goes all the way down and forwards, which makes the A-pillar stand quite far to the front, which then allows you to see out of the side window when you're on a roundabout or whatever. I'm never looking straight against the A-pillars in this car, which is great. And if you look behind you, it's a fishbowl. There's just so much glass going on. I don't have the glass roof, which many of these Twingos had, unfortunately. I do have electric windows and electric mirrors. I also have central locking, but it only works with the little remote that didn't come with the car. The only thing I can do is use this button, and that works. This doesn't work. Actually ruined it myself. I have to replace that. I broke one of the contacts. Otherwise, everything works actually. Speedo is a bit wonky, but all the lights work, all the switches work. Rear window heater works, fog lamps work. Actually, they always say that French cars are unreliable when it comes to electronics. Well, this one is not. It's actually flawless, except for the Speedo. There's always an except, isn't there? That's what you get for buying cheap cars. And you could argue that if you'd bought a more expensive Twingo, that you would have less of a hassle. But not really. I mean, the thing is, even if you buy... That's actually... Okay, I was right in the ref range. That was actually surprisingly quick. If you buy a more expensive Twingo for say 700, 800, 900 euros, you still wouldn't have new tires, you still wouldn't have new brakes, new clutch, new anything, and you'd still be spending money within the first year. And the thing is, I only spent a little money. I first checked if the car had any weird stuff. No, it didn't. And I was like, okay, this was worth the risk. Let's put some money in it. And by the by, I started fixing it up. And so far, it's actually been really nice to me. Yeah, it's been really good. I'm actually enjoying driving it. So does my girlfriend. So that's cool too. Everyone likes the little white Twingo. You should have seen it when I got it. It was not even slightly white. It was the dirtiest, filthiest thing I've ever seen. I mean, not mud, but just years of not washing it. And the oil was a mess. And I'm actually really, really proud of this little car that it still works so well, because it obviously had not been maintained in the past few years, maybe even in the past decade. So that's actually kind of sad, and it is repaying me by actually driving better and better every day. It's getting more smooth the longer I'm driving it. So yeah, it's actually a really grateful little car so far. There's something weird going on with the windscreen wiper, by the way. I think they put a slightly too large windscreen wiper on there. I already have another one, but I still have to put it on there. It's almost hitting on the left bottom side, and it's completely hitting on the right side. It's like flap hitting something there. It doesn't do it right now, but when you speed them up, you'll need more rain for that. But I can use the washer now. Wait, let me first navigate these corners. Look. That's not supposed to happen, obviously. So that needs some attention too. It does keep you off the streets though. I don't mind working on a car that actually gets better instead of slightly getting worse no matter what you do to it, like my previous two Fiats did. Still, I really like the Cinquecento, but nah. As a second car, it just wasn't reliable enough. It just kept giving me a headache, developing all these weird problems. I'm happy to say that it didn't go to the scrapyard. We did manage to take it to someone who is actually going to fix it up. I hope he's got more luck with it than I do. And when he's done, he'll sell it on to someone for cheap. So he's just selling all cheap little cars that no one wants, and I actually really like that. This is where you feel these are cobblestones, and they are wet and they are slippery, and you feel the car push forward, and then the back follows it. It almost wants to go out, but it doesn't. It stays right on the track of the front wheels, but you can feel that the balance of this car is actually really good. And for one of these little city runabouts, that's actually something to be really proud of. Well done, Renault, once more. Speed bumps are no issue. I mean, obviously they're there. It's not like a Citroen BX where you can just ignore them. Well, you shouldn't, it will ruin the car, but it feels like you can ignore them. But it does them with a certain amount of grace and subtlety. It's never really bone-shattering uncomfortable. I'll give you a little acceleration demo, just in second gear, nothing too extreme. I've done about 2,000 kilometers with this car now. I've been driving it a lot, as you can see, because I've only had it for like a month. And yeah, it's getting better and better. It's actually great fun. Okay, here we go. We got a bit of a stretch here, so here we go, full throttle, and it goes wide a bit. See, it's very limited understeer, but it's understeer. Okay, well that's enough because I'm only allowed to do 60 here, and I'm doing about 70 now, so that's enough. Nice weather today, but the Twingo's fine with that. Also, if you're ever looking for one of these cars, they do rust. Okay, they rust a lot. Get one that is not rusty, even if it's not the prettiest, even if it's not the one with the lowest mileage. Rust is your biggest enemy with this car, and rust is always expensive to fix. So make sure you get one that's not rusty, or at least not too rusty. I mean, these has a few brown spots every now and then underneath the windows and stuff, but nothing important, nothing that will cause any problems with the annual checks. I'm just calling them annual checks because they have different names in every country. So the only rust I could really find on this one, and it's not too big, is where you I don't know the English word actually. You know, when you put the car up higher so you can work on a wheel or something. I'm not sure what the word for that is. I'll figure it out later. The points where you actually lift it, that's where at some point it apparently fell off and it got damaged, and that rusted a bit, so it was standing open like this because it consists of two layers. So we cleaned it up and put some stuff in between to stop it rusting and pushed it back together, and we think it should be fine for a couple of years now. I'm not planning on driving this car forever. It may surprise me, but if it works for 2-3 years, I'll be more than happy for the money I pay. And so far it's been doing good. A jack stand. Exactly. So where you jack it up, that's where it rusted. Not because it rusts, but because they fucked up and never bothered to fix it. It's actually kind of funny. The guy driving in front of me right now, he's like an 80-year-old guy. I don't know how old he is, but I never talked to him. But he's always driving around in this village. Like always, you always find him, and he's always driving like 15 kilometers an hour, slowly to the village, with a huge smile on his face. Apparently, this is what he does. Being old, nothing to do, just driving in his Ford Focus 24/7. It's really interesting. I don't mind. He's never been in the way. Just don't get behind him because you'll be late wherever you want to go. So, I think I've said about all. This is a little Twingo, and I'm really happy with it. It really puts a smile on my face every time I drive it. There's a certain charm to the way it steers and the way it works and the way everything is laid out, and it just makes you smile looking at a dashboard like this and then figuring out that it's from 1992. I mean this car's from 97, but the design is from 92, and it's so smart, it's so modern, it does not feel like an old car inside. It drives like an old car, it has to be said. It drives like a car from the 80s, but it looks like a modern car when you're on the inside, and I think that's really cool. This is what the Japanese little runabouts from the 90s and noughties should have looked like on the inside. They're always grey and boring. This one's grey and interesting. Actually, this is obviously not original. The little mat I have here, it's an anti-slip thing. I didn't put it in it because I wanted an anti-slip thing, but probably people put some sharp stuff on there, keys or something, I don't know, and it was all really damaged, so I put the thing there so it looks better. I wonder how long it will last. It's not very expensive, but we'll see. Otherwise I'll figure out something else. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to get a new dashboard for this one. I also need a rubber strip here because this is rattling. That's why there's a bit of paper there. So yeah, it's a bit of MacGyvering, but so far I've been really happy with this one. And I hope it will last us a few years, because that will be fun. We once bought a 95 Euro Daihatsu that's still going, 10 years on, at a friend of mine, and it's his most reliable car to date. So, you know, sometimes you can get lucky. I know that the Daihatsu is Japanese, but still, let's hope we get lucky with this one. I wish you all a lovely evening, and I'll speak to you later.